that Christ died for our sins, was buried, rose from the dead, appeared to the apostles, to James, and to over 500 people who saw him risen from the dead, most of whom are still living. And you see that the resurrection of Christ was not made up by a church that was trying to increase its adherents. Right from the get-go, the resurrection of Christ was at the center of the message of these followers of Christ. We have seen this man risen from the dead. Then, one after another, they stood before Roman soldiers, and the Roman soldiers said, "Acknowledge Caesar as Lord and live, or else maintain that Jesus is Lord and we'll kill you." And every single one of them said, "I have seen Jesus risen from the dead," and they died, not for a belief. They died for what they claimed to have seen, the dead Christ risen from the dead. Psychology shows you, people will not die to cover up what they know to be a lie. People will die for a lie, convinced it's true. But these guys died claiming, "We saw Jesus risen from the dead, he is Lord." Which means if they didn't see him, they were lying.
But this isn't in the Roman writings. There's no record of this slaughter.
Eusebius records it wonderfully.
Schizophrenia is a disease which is common.
That's right. Jesus was a schizophrenic. And so were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were all a bunch of schizophrenics. How on earth can you read the Gospels, the teachings of Christ, and conclude that the guy had mental problems? How on earth can you read the Sermon on the Mount and conclude that Jesus had mental problems? Come on.
How can you
His
prove?
resurrection.
When was the last time you saw a resurrection of
When was the
anybody?
last time I saw?
You
I
saw
never
a
have seen
dead.
resurrections.
Exactly. Can you? I mean, have you ever seen any kind of a phenomenon like that before?
No.
I mean, no. I mean, so how can you believe something like that?
Because
Yes, you
first
can
of all,
believe. I mean,
the
somebody
evidence is
dying.
that a supernatural God exists, and because a supernatural God exists, he is totally capable of performing a miracle.
So you've seen God, basically.
No, I've seen evidence that God exists.
Like what? What
Order and
evidence?
design of the cosmos, life coming from life, not from non-life, moral absolutes pointing us to the fact that there's more to reality than matter and energy,
Okay,
free
you can't-
will.
But I'm sure you can. All right, unless you can you prove that we even exist?
Sir, I can't even prove we're having this conversation.
Exactly, exactly. So I mean, when you start talking about all these different things, and what you're basically talking about is whose rhetoric is stronger, and then you would follow that.
No, sir. No, sir. Right here. I can't prove to you he's sitting here. It is not an issue of rhetoric, whether I stop my hand right there. It is an issue of evidence. The evidence is he is sitting here. That's why I don't keep swinging through his handsome face. Has nothing to do with rhetoric. Has to do with evidence that the guy's sitting here. I base my life on evidence. I can't prove to you he's there, but boy, the evidence of my eyesight is he is there. Therefore, I stop when his face begins.
But where's the evidence of resurrection?
That's historical evidence. The historical evidence found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is that the guy really died on a cross, was really buried, and 3 days later really came alive again.
And that's exactly what I'm saying, is that's rhetoric. I'm not saying that.
What do you mean that's rhetoric? It is words, yes, well you do agree on that.
Right, and I'm saying that to prove something, in order for them to prove something, they would have to say all these things, and they're doing exactly that.
We already agreed
and I'm not
upon the
saying
fact
that
we
they
can't
didn't
prove
believe in it.
anything. So
And I
don't
didn't
use
say-
proof. I
I
can't use proof.
Okay, but I'm
Evidence.
talking about evidence that they're saying, and well, I'm saying proof because that's what they're using. Because I'm saying that they're using rhetoric for people to believe in these things, and to believe in Jesus, and belief is irrational. So I mean, it could be.
No, belief is not irrational. It doesn't have to be irrational. It can be irrational. But if your belief is based on solid evidence, that's not an irrational belief.
But then it's not belief.
Yes, it is belief.
I mean, if it's solid evidence, then it's concrete. I mean, there's no belief in it. then.
Prove to me the University of Texas is going to grant you a diploma on your day of graduation. Prove to me UT is not going to say, hey, let's break tradition, no diplomas this year. It is possible.
Prove to me that you're going to get to heaven even if you do all the things that
I can't
Bible
prove
says.
it.
Then there we go. So that's rhetoric.
But there's evidence that UT is a reliable institution of higher learning. Based on that evidence, you pay a big tuition, you study hard to get a diploma. That's belief.
Yep.
And that belief is based on evidence. You don't prove UT is going to give you a diploma. The evidence is, if you complete the course of study, if you pay your tuition, they'll give you a diploma. Sir, you have belief. Prove to me your roommate's not going to stick a knife in your back tonight. You can't prove it. Prove to me prove to me that your closest friend is not going to stick a knife in your back tomorrow.
I can't. And
Exactly.
I don't have a belief in that, though.
You don't.
I'm certainly, I expect anybody to stab me in the back. True, yes. And I'm from New York, too, so I'm sure you believe that, too, right?
Well, I think...
Or you know that, I should say.
Although I cannot prove to you that my best friend is not going to stick a knife in my back, there's a lot of evidence that my best friend is not going to stick a knife in my back. That's why when I see my best friend on Wednesday, I'm not going to check her pockets and purse to find out if she got a knife in there.
Okay.
That's belief, sir.
Okay.
When there's so much cosmic activity going on, the chance for something like this to happen, where the energy would come together, there'd be a big boom, is infinitely larger than you're making it seem. If you want to talk about plausibility among society, do you think it's more plausible that God came down to the mountain, wrote the Ten Commandments on some stone, and Moses brought him down, or that the first beings got together and said, gee, you think we shouldn't kill each other? Boy, probably not good to sleep with his wife? That's more plausible. Natural law and science coming together in the multitude of things that happen in the cosmos is more plausible.
All right. If what you say is true, that means murder is not absolutely wrong, it's relatively wrong. Because human beings created that moral. Correct?
Even if God
Right?
created it,
Correct.
it's the same
All right.
thing.
Which means if I choose to murder him, from your perspective, that might be wrong. From my perspective, it might be right. Your worldview demands that you acknowledge you're not really right and I'm not really wrong. I'm not really right and you're not really wrong. It's all relative.
Right, it's relative to the grand scheme, to the majority morality. If there are 10% of the people who think that murdering is correct, then you can judge by the fact that there's 90% of people who are sure that it's wrong, that then in our morality, and morality is a relative thing.
Right.
Morality is not an absolute thing. Our morality changes all the time.
Uh-huh.
So, morally, it is wrong to kill him. If you think it is correct to kill him, then you work under a different moral system that does not mesh with the moral system of the world.
Right.
Correct.
So, you're born in Nazi Germany. Majority of people believe that we better get rid of the Jewish people.
But
So
that's still
that's
a minority.
morally-
We're not talking about a majority of 6 people. We're talking about a majority of the world.
Of the world, I see. So in order to understand what's right and wrong, we need to take a survey of every person on the planet to understand what the majority really believe is true. And then once we've taken that survey and we've gotten the status quo, the majority opinion, then we understand that that's right and wrong?
No, that's not how morality works.
Well, then what are you telling me? What's the basis of morality? I thought you just told me the basis of morality is majority opinion.
It is. But
Thank
I
you.
did not
That's what I thought
say,
you
what I
said.
did not say was that we needed to take a survey of each individual person to decide what morality was. Rather, morality is something that is accepted. For example, it would be the same thing. If God created morality, then it's relative to what God thought, and tomorrow God would change his mind, and we could all murder each other and it'd be great. So every day we'd have
If
to take
God
a
is that
survey.
way.
So every day we'd have to take a survey of God or
If
the
God were
priest
that
or
way.
the Pope or whoever you want to
Right.
survey of and tell them, okay, is it okay to murder today, or is still that
Right.
still a bad thing?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's
No, it's
relative
not
to
the
what
same
you
thing.
think. Yes, it is.
Because Jesus Christ insisted that God does not change, that God's character is just, and God has defined injustice very clearly, dehumanizing people, attacking the dignity and sanctity of human life. And because God's character does not change, his definition of justice and injustice does not change.